The man who risked it all for a cheap imitation and lost his queen. What happens when a man who cruelly scorns his pregnant wife for a younger model suddenly finds himself in the front row to witness her spectacular return? Ethan thought he had it all. A new, sultry girlfriend he boasted looked like a movie star, and the freedom from his boring previous life. He couldn't stop rubbing it in his ex-wife Olivia's face, but he never imagined that while he was busy showing off his cheap imitation, Olivia was being discreetly courted by one of the world's most reclusive billionaires. Get ready for a story of ultimate revenge, where the red carpet becomes a battlefield, and a scorned woman's triumph is witnessed by the entire world. Hello everyone, welcome. If you're new here, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas. Your support helps us create these stories for you. Now, let's get into it. The collector and his prize. Ethan Pierce was a man who collected beautiful things. His penthouse in the heart of Manhattan's Soho district was a testament to his exquisite, if a bit soulless, taste. Polished chrome and white leather furniture sat on a vast expanse of imported Italian marble. Abstract art from trendy, up-and-coming artists adorned the walls, each piece a calculated investment. His watch was a Patek Philippe, his suits were exclusively Tom Ford, and his car, a sleek black Aston Martin DB11, purred with the promise of power and prestige. And then there was Isabella, his most recent and prized acquisition. Isabella Rossi was, in Ethan's own bombastic words, a real-life movie star. With her cascade of jet-black hair, seductive almond eyes, and a figure that seemed to have been sculpted by the gods, she was the type of woman who commanded stares wherever she went. A 24-year-old aspiring actress and Instagram model with a following of moderately impressed bots and thirsty men. She was the perfect accessory for a man like Ethan. He paraded her through the city's most exclusive restaurants, a smug smile permanently etched on his face as he basked in the envious glances of other men. "Look at her," he would tell his friends, his voice a possessive whisper as Isabella posed for a selfie at their table at Balthazar. "She has that Sophia Loren vibe, doesn't she? A classic beauty. You just don't find that anymore." His friends, a chorus of sycophants who benefited from his generosity, would nod enthusiastically. What Ethan conveniently omitted from his triumphant narrative was the woman he had so recently discarded to make room for his new movie star, his wife of 5 years, Olivia, who was pregnant with his child. Olivia, soon to be Olivia Parker again, was Isabella's antithesis. Where Isabella was a dazzling firework, Olivia was a quiet, steady flame. She had a delicate beauty. With honey blonde hair she often wore in a simple, elegant bun, and smart, kind eyes that seemed to see right through Ethan's carefully constructed facade. She was a talented landscape architect, a woman who found beauty in the natural world, not in the fleeting trends of fashion and fame. She had been the stabilizing force in Ethan's life, the one who had supported him when he was just a struggling entrepreneur with a dream. She had been his partner in every sense of the word, and he had repaid her loyalty with a betrayal so profound that it had shattered her world. The day he left her was seared into her memory like a brand. She was 6 months pregnant, her body changing in ways that were both miraculous and terrifying. She had been planning the nursery, a room filled with light and love, a sanctuary for the child they had both wanted so badly. He had come home from a business trip to Miami, his face a mask of cold indifference. He had told her, with the same emotion as a man discussing a failed business deal, that he was in love with someone else, someone younger, someone more exciting, someone who didn't have stretch marks and morning sickness. "I need to be with someone who inspires me, Liv," he had said, the casual shortening of her name a cruel twist of the knife. "Someone who makes me feel alive." His bags were already packed. Her world, once a vibrant landscape of shared dreams and future hopes, had been reduced to a barren wasteland in the space of a single, heartless conversation. The divorce had been quick and brutal. Ethan, ever the pragmatist, had offered her a generous settlement, a golden cage to keep her quiet and out of his new, glamorous life. He had kept the Soho penthouse, of course. Olivia had taken the money and retreated to a quiet, tree-lined street in Brooklyn, to a brownstone she had once dreamed of renovating with him. Now, she would do it alone. But Ethan couldn't just leave her be. He seemed to derive a perverse pleasure from flaunting his new life in her face. He would post a relentless stream of photos of himself and Isabella on Instagram, their lives a curated montage of private jets, exotic vacations, and champagne-fueled parties. He would tag her in the posts, a digital slap in the face. He even had the audacity to send her a Christmas card, with a professional photo of himself and Isabella in matching cashmere sweaters, grinning vacantly in front of a crackling fire in an Aspen ski lodge. On the back, in his neat, arrogant handwriting, he had written, "Wishing you a Merry Christmas. Hope you're doing well." Olivia had thrown the card into the fireplace, watching the flames consume their smug, perfect faces. But the pain was still a dull, persistent ache in her chest. She was carrying his child, a constant and living reminder of his betrayal, and he was living a consequence-free life of bliss with a woman who was little more than a child. Her friends, a fiercely protective circle of women who had known her since college, were incandescent with rage. "He's a monster, Liv," her best friend Chloe had said one afternoon, her voice shaking with anger. "A soulless narcissist. How can you be so calm?" But Olivia wasn't calm. She was drowning. The joy she should have been feeling for her impending motherhood was tainted by the bitterness of her heartbreak. She would sit in the half-finished nursery, surrounded by boxes of unassembled furniture and untouched baby clothes, and she would cry until she had no more tears left. She felt like a ghost in her own life, a silent observer of her own slow-motion collapse. Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by grief that it feels like life has stopped? We would love to hear your story in the comments below. Meanwhile, Ethan was utterly oblivious to the depths of her despair, or perhaps he was aware and simply didn't care. His world was a bubble of self-congratulation, and Olivia was a distant, unpleasant memory he could easily discard. He was too busy curating his image as the man who had it all. He had even started a blog, a pretentious and self-aggrandizing platform where he pontificated on everything from investment strategies to the art of living a bespoke life. He wrote a post titled, "Leveling Up: Why I Chose a Life of Authenticity and Passion," which was a thinly veiled justification for leaving Olivia. He didn't mention her by name, of course. He simply referred to his previous chapter as a time of stagnation and compromise. He wrote about the importance of surrounding oneself with vibrant, inspiring people, and anyone who knew him knew he was talking about Isabella. The post went viral in his small, privileged circle. People whispered about it at dinner parties, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. Olivia's name was on everyone's lips, the wronged woman, the discarded wife. She felt the weight of their stares, the sting of their pity, every time she left her brownstone. Ethan, on the other hand, reveled in the attention. He saw himself as a maverick, a man who had dared to break free from the suffocating confines of a conventional life. He was a pioneer of self-realization, a guru of self-actualization. He was also a first-class fool, and his downfall was destined to be as spectacular as his rise. But for now, He was on top of the world, his movie star girlfriend on his arm, the city at his feet. He had no idea that the woman he had so carelessly discarded was about to rewrite her own story, and that her comeback would be more dazzling than anything he could ever have imagined. The seeds of his humiliation were being sown on the quiet, tree-lined streets of Brooklyn, in the heart of a woman who was slowly and painstakingly putting the pieces of her shattered life back together. And when she was complete again, she would be a force to be reckoned with. Ethan Pierce, the man who thought he had it all, was about to lose the one thing he had never truly valued: his dignity. The silent triumph. The first few months after Ethan left were a blur of pain and hormones. Olivia moved through her days in a fog of grief, her pregnancy a bittersweet reminder of a future that had been stolen from her. She would wake up in the middle of the night, her hand instinctively reaching for the empty space in the bed beside her, and the reality of her solitude would hit her with the force of a physical blow. The brownstone, which she had once imagined as a warm, cozy family home, felt cavernous and cold, its silence amplifying her loneliness. Her friends, Chloe and another close friend, Jessica, a sharp-witted lawyer who had handled her divorce with fierce tenacity, formed a protective cocoon around her. They would show up at her door armed with tubs of ice cream, gossip magazines, and a bottomless well of righteous indignation on her behalf. They would listen to her cry, rant against Ethan's cruelty, and push her gently but firmly towards the future. "You can't let him win, Liv," Jessica had said one afternoon, her voice firm as she watched Olivia listlessly pick at a salad. "And right now, by letting yourself be consumed like this, you're letting him win. You need to prove it to him. And more importantly, you need to prove it to yourself, that your life didn't end when he walked out that door." Jessica's words, though harsh, were a necessary jolt. Olivia knew she was right. She couldn't let her grief consume her. Not when she had a new life growing inside her, a life that deserved a happy, healthy mother. That night, she made a decision. She would not be a victim. She would be a survivor. The next morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She started with the nursery. She unpacked the boxes, assembled the crib, and painted the walls a soft, sunny yellow. She hung a mobile of delicate, hand-carved wooden animals over the crib, and as she watched them spin in the gentle morning breeze, a flicker of hope was ignited within her. This room wasn't a monument to her loss. It was a promise of a new beginning. She threw herself into her work, channeling her pain and anger into creativity. As a landscape architect, she had always found solace in the natural world, in the patient, resilient beauty of plants and trees. She took on a new project, a commission to design a rooftop garden for a new luxury hotel in downtown Manhattan. The project was ambitious and demanding, and it was exactly what she needed. She spent her days poring over blueprints, sketching designs, and sourcing rare and exotic plants. The work was a salve for her wounded soul, a tangible way to create beauty in a world that had suddenly turned ugly. It was during a visit to a specialized nursery in upstate New York that her life took an unexpected turn. She was looking for a particular variety of Japanese maple, a rare Yoron cultivar with delicate, lace-like leaves. The nursery owner, a gruff but knowledgeable man named Mr. Henderson, told her that he had sold the last one to a private collector. "A real plant enthusiast, this one," Mr. Henderson had said, his voice a low rumble. "Buys up all my best stuff. Lives on a huge estate on the Hudson. A real recluse, they say. Name's Julian Croft." The name meant nothing to Olivia. She felt disappointed, but she thanked Mr. Henderson and was about to leave when a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the nursery. A tall, impeccably dressed man with salt and pepper hair and penetrating blue eyes emerged from the car. He exuded an aura of quiet authority, a man who was used to being in control of his surroundings. Mr. Henderson's face lit up. "Well, speak of the devil," he muttered to Olivia. "That's him. That's Mr. Croft." Julian Croft overheard him, and a faint, amused smile touched his lips. He walked over to them, his gaze falling on Olivia. There was an intensity in his eyes that made her feel both seen and a little nervous. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said, his voice a low, cultivated baritone that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Not at all, Mr. Croft," Mr. Henderson said jovially. "This young lady was just asking about your Japanese maple." Julian Croft's gaze shifted back to Olivia, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "My Japanese maple?" "Yes," she said, her tone more confident than she felt. "The Palmatum Ryusin maple. I was hoping to use it in a project I'm designing." Julian Croft's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You're a landscape architect?" "Yes," she said. "Olivia Parker." He held out a hand. "Julian Croft. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Parker." His handshake was firm and warm, and he held her gaze for a moment longer than was strictly necessary. They talked for over an hour, their conversation flowing as easily as the nearby creek. He was fascinated by her work, and she was captivated by his deep knowledge of botany and his passion for conservation. He told her about his estate on the Hudson, a vast property he was slowly rewilding, returning it to its natural state. He spoke with a quiet passion that was a world away from Ethan's loud, boastful pronouncements. As they were about to part ways, he said, "I know this is forward, but I would be fascinated to see your designs for the hotel rooftop, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'd be interested in seeing my Japanese maple." Olivia felt surprised, but found herself smiling. "I'd like that very much, Mr. Croft." "Julian," he corrected her softly. "What would you do if you were in Olivia's shoes? Would you give Julian a chance?" Their first date, as Chloe would later call it with breathless excitement, was a visit to his estate the following weekend. It was a world away from the glitz and glamour of Manhattan. A long, winding drive led through a dense forest of ancient trees to a magnificent stone mansion overlooking the Hudson River. The grounds were a breathtaking tapestry of rolling hills, wildflower meadows, and meticulously maintained gardens. Julian gave her a tour of the property, his love for the land evident in every word he spoke. He showed her his prized Japanese maple, its delicate crimson leaves a pop of vibrant color against the lush green of the surrounding forest. He showed her his greenhouses filled with rare and exotic orchids. He showed her the apiary where he raised bees and the organic vegetable garden that supplied his kitchen. They ate lunch on a sun-drenched terrace overlooking the river, a simple and delicious meal of fresh-baked bread, artisanal cheeses, and salads made from vegetables from his garden. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. She found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't to anyone in a long time. She told him about her pregnancy, her recent divorce, and her struggle to rebuild her life. She hadn't meant to. The words just spilled out of her, a torrent of pent-up pain and vulnerability. He listened patiently, his blue eyes filled with a compassion so genuine it brought tears to her eyes. He didn't offer promises or easy answers. He just listened, and in his quiet, attentive presence, she felt a sense of peace that had been absent from her life for so long. When she told him about Ethan, about his cruelty and his constant need for validation, a flicker of something cold and hard entered his eyes. "He sounds like a very small man," he said, his voice low and firm. Olivia felt startled by the fierce protectiveness in his tone. For the first time since Ethan had left, she felt a sense of security, a feeling of being treasured. As the afternoon drew to a close, he walked her back to her car. "I hope this won't be the last time I see you, Olivia," he said, his voice soft. "It won't," she said, and she knew in her heart that it was true. Their relationship blossomed in the weeks that followed. They would meet for long walks in Central Park, for quiet dinners, in secluded restaurants where they were unlikely to be seen, and for weekends at his estate on the Hudson. He was a perfect gentleman, attentive and kind, and he treated her with a reverence that was both thrilling and a little terrifying. She learned more about him. He was a tech billionaire, the founder of a revolutionary software company that had changed the way the world communicated. He was notoriously private, a man who shied away from the limelight and valued his anonymity. He had been a widower for 10 years. His wife had died in a tragic accident. He had never remarried and had poured all his energy into his work and his philanthropic endeavors. He was everything Ethan was not: kind, humble, and genuinely interested in the world around him. He was a man of substance, a man of quiet strength, and to Olivia's astonishment, he was falling in love with her. He never rushed her, never pushed her for more than she was ready to give. He was patient and understanding, and he seemed to know instinctively what she needed. He would show up at her brownstone with her favorite takeout, or send her a bouquet of her favorite flowers, peonies, with a simple, handwritten note that read, "Thinking of you." One night, as they sat in front of the fireplace in her living room, he took her hand. "Olivia," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I know this is fast, and I know you've been through a lot, but I have to tell you how I feel. I'm falling in love with you." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too, Julian," she whispered. He leaned in and kissed her, a soft, tender kiss that was full of all the unspoken emotions that had been building between them. It was a kiss that promised a future she had never dared to dream of, a future filled with love, laughter, and the quiet joy of a shared life. As her due date approached, Julian became her rock. He accompanied her to her prenatal appointments, helped her finish the nursery, and was there holding her hand when she gave birth to a healthy, beautiful baby boy. She named him Leo, a name that means lion, a symbol of the strength she had found within herself. Ethan, meanwhile, was completely oblivious to the dramatic changes in Olivia's life. He was too immersed in his own world, too busy flaunting his movie star girlfriend and his perfect life. He had heard through the grapevine that Olivia had given birth and had sent her a perfunctory text message. "Congrats. Let me know what I owe you for child support." He had no idea that Olivia was no longer the broken, lonely woman he had left behind. He had no idea that she had found a love deeper and more profound than he could ever comprehend. And he had no idea that she was about to make a spectacular entrance into the world on the arm of a man who could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. The stage was set for a showdown, and the red carpet was about to become a battleground. The red carpet coronation, while Olivia was wrapped in the quiet, authentic joy of new motherhood and blossoming love. Ethan was aggressively marketing his own happiness. His life was no longer something to be lived, but a brand to be managed, and he was its most relentless and obnoxious promoter. His Instagram was the primary vehicle for this campaign, a relentless, high-gloss stream of manufactured happiness. Every post was a carefully composed tableau, designed to scream effortless success and cool. Ethan and Isabella, clinking champagne flutes on a private jet to St. Bart's. The caption, a casual, work hard, play hard. The two of them in matching Fendi ski suits in a Courchevel chalet, looking artfully disheveled. Isabella posing with a Birkin handbag, newly acquired and breathtakingly expensive, on the Pont des Arts in Paris. A lovelock with their initials visible just over her shoulder. The zenith of this PR offensive was an 8-page spread in Prestige Living, a glossy magazine whose primary function was to flatter the egos of the newly rich. The article, brazenly titled "The Art of the Upgrade: Ethan Pierce on Life, Love, and Living Authentically," was a masterclass in narcissistic revisionist history. In it, Ethan, photographed in his stark Soho penthouse, pontificated on his personal philosophy, a toxic blend of plagiarized self-help quotes and breathtaking hypocrisy. "Authenticity is everything," he was quoted as saying, his face airbrushed to a weird, radiant smoothness on the page. "It means having the courage to audit your life, to identify the elements that no longer serve your highest self, and to have the strength to cut them out." The thinly veiled cruelty was stunning. He referred to his 5-year marriage not by name but as his previous chapter, a time of comfortable stagnation and muted colors. He spoke of his new life with Isabella as an explosion of vitality, a return to passion. The accompanying photos were a grotesque parody of intimacy. There was Isabella, draped in a sheer silk tunic, posed on the edge of his vast, unwrinkled bed, feeding him a single, perfect strawberry. There was Ethan, staring thoughtfully out his floor-to-ceiling windows, with a glass of Macallan XV5 in his hand, as if contemplating the secrets of the universe instead of his stock portfolio. It was less a portrait of a relationship and more an advertisement for a life that no one was truly living. The article landed like a grenade in their old social circle. Olivia's best friend Chloe was the one to break the news, calling Olivia in a state of incandescent fury. "You are not going to believe this self-righteous pig," she shrieked into the phone, proceeding to read the most offensive passages aloud. Olivia, who was rocking a fussy, milk-drunk Leo in her arms, listened in silence. The familiar acidic sting of betrayal pricked her, but to her own surprise, it was a distant sensation, a phantom limb of a pain that had mostly healed. When Chloe emailed her the link, she opened it on her laptop. She looked at the glossy, sterile images of the man she had once loved and the girl who had replaced her. They looked like two beautiful, expensive mannequins, their smiles vacant, their poses stiff. There was no life in their eyes. She looked down at the warm, snoring baby nestled against her chest, at his tiny fist clutching her finger, and a wave of profound peace washed over her. She pressed a soft kiss to his head, inhaling his sweet, milky scent. This was real. This was authentic. This warm, messy, unpredictable, and deeply joyful reality was something Ethan, in his cold and curated world, would never understand. She closed the laptop, not with anger, but with a sudden and overwhelming wave of pity. He wasn't living a life. He was upholding a facade, and that had to be an exhausting and empty existence. When Julian visited her that night, he found the magazine open on the coffee table. He read the article in silence, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Olivia watched him, and when he was done, he gently set it down and looked at her, his penetrating blue eyes filled with a quiet, protective fire. "He's terrified," Julian said, his voice a low, steady rumble. "Men like that, men who need to shout their happiness from the rooftops, are the ones who have the least of it. It's an act to convince himself, not the world. He's a very small man, Olivia, making a very loud noise to distract himself from his own emptiness." His words were a balm that extinguished the last embers of her pain. He didn't just console her, he armed her with clarity, a new lens through which to view the man who had broken her heart. Ethan wasn't a titan to be feared, but a hollow shell to be pitied. In the months that followed, Olivia's world continued to expand, while Ethan's, unbeknownst to him, began to shrink. Her rooftop garden project for the new Nomad Hotel was completed to rave reviews. It was a masterpiece of sustainable design, a lush urban oasis that felt both wild and serene. Her work earned her the prestigious National Landscape Design Award, a major honor in her field. At the awards ceremony, she walked on stage, her pregnant figure elegant in a simple, well-cut dress, and gave a brief, humble speech, thanking her team and speaking of her belief that creating green spaces in cities was an act of radical hope. The award led to a feature of her own, not in a frivolous lifestyle circular, but in Architectural Digest. The photo shoot was the antithesis of Ethan's. The photographer shot in natural light, capturing Olivia in her element. In the sun-drenched living room of her brownstone, her hands smudged with charcoal from sketching, or on the finished hotel rooftop, her face alight with a genuine smile as she inspected a blooming vine. The article celebrated her talent, her vision, and her quiet, profound contribution to the beauty of the world. It was a dignified and powerful testament to her resilience and her craft. Do you identify with Olivia's journey to find happiness in authenticity rather than fame? Her life with Julian deepened into the kind of partnership she had always craved. He seamlessly became a part of her world, and Leo's. He was a man of immense wealth and influence, but he found his greatest joy in the simplest things. He would lie on the floor of the brownstone for hours, his deep laughter echoing as he made silly faces at Leo. He learned to distinguish Leo's tired cry from his hungry one. He was there for the first real smile, the first coup, the first time Leo rolled over. A moment they celebrated with the same quiet reverence as a major business deal. They were a family forged not out of obligation, but out of a deep, steady, and quiet love. Ethan, meanwhile, was discovering that a life built on novelty has a very short shelf life. The dazzling excitement of Isabella was fading, revealing a chasm of incompatibility. Their conversations, which he had once found refreshingly simple, now struck him as painfully boring. A looping track of celebrity gossip, brand names, and complaints about her Instagram algorithm. Her entire existence was performative, lived through the lens of her phone. He would try to talk to her about a new business venture or an article he had read, and her eyes would glaze over before she would interrupt him to ask if he thought a particular filter made her look divine. He was living with a beautiful, animated ghost. A strange, gnawing curiosity began to consume him. He started thinking about Olivia constantly. He found her new, private Instagram account. A friend of a friend had let it slip. He created a fake profile to follow it. What he saw was a quiet gut punch. Her feed wasn't a performance. It was a diary. It was filled with candid, sun-drenched photos. Leo's feet, impossibly tiny. Olivia, laughing with dirt on her cheek from her garden. A close-up of the blueprints for a new project. It was a life of substance, a life that felt real. He saw the photo from her awards night, holding the heavy, elegant trophy, looking radiant and utterly in her own power. Then he saw the one that stopped his breath. It was a candid photo, probably taken by a friend. Olivia and a man were sitting on a park bench, sharing a coffee. The man had his arm around her and was looking at her with an expression of pure, unadulterated adoration that sent a wave of hot, possessive anger through Ethan. Who the hell was this guy? His fingers flew across the keyboard. He searched her name, the awards, the hotel project, and then he found him. The man in the photo wasn't just a new boyfriend. He was Julian Croft. A quick, frantic search pulled up a handful of old, rare Forbes and Wall Street Journal articles. Tech visionary, philanthropist, recluse, and a net worth with so many commas that it made Ethan's considerable wealth look like a rounding error. The blood drained from Ethan's face. A cold, sick dread settled in his stomach. He had left Olivia for an aspiring actress. He had boasted that he had a movie star, and she, quietly, without any fanfare, had ended up with a man who could buy the entire movie studio, its catalog, and the island they filmed on. The sheer cosmic scale of his miscalculation was stunning. He saw himself not as the man who had upgraded, but as the fool who had traded a winning lottery ticket for a handful of magic beans. The final act was set in motion a few weeks later. The Met Gala, the absolute pinnacle of the social calendar, was approaching. "I'm one of the co-chairs this year," Julian mentioned casually one night as they cleaned up after dinner, Leo asleep in his bassinet nearby. "And I was hoping my partner would do me the honor of attending with me." Olivia froze, a dishcloth in her hand. The idea was terrifying. The cameras, the crowds, the judgment. It was everything she had spent the last year escaping from. "Oh, Seb, I don't think I can," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "That world, it's not me. I've been so happy being invisible." Julian walked over to her, took the dishcloth from her hands, and wrapped her in his arms. He looked her straight in the eyes, his gaze steady and reassuring. "I know, and I wouldn't ask you if it was just about a party," he said softly. "Think of it differently. It's not about going back into their world. It's about you stepping into yours on your own terms. I want the world to see the woman that I see every day. Not the scorned wife from the tabloids, but the brilliant, strong, beautiful artist who is creating the most incredible life. This isn't a performance, Olivia. It's a coronation. Your coronation." She looked at him, at the utter belief in his eyes, and felt her fear begin to recede, replaced by a nascent flicker of excitement. He wasn't asking her to be an accessory. He was asking her to take her crown. "Okay," she exhaled, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Okay, I'll go." The next day, she made a call to a stylist. Julian had recommended a legend known for creating iconic, elegant looks. As she described her vision, something graceful, powerful, and unshakably her. She felt a sense of purpose solidify inside her. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan Pierce was pulling every string he could, calling in every favor he was owed to secure his own tickets to the gala. He finally got them, and he and Isabella immediately began planning their red carpet assault, plotting a coordinated look designed to get them noticed. He had no idea he was a supporting actor in a drama he didn't even know was being written. He was preparing for a party, while Olivia was preparing for a resurrection. Do you think the Met Gala is the perfect place for an ending like this? And what do you think Olivia's iconic look will be? The final act, the night of the Met Gala, was less a party and more a controlled detonation of fame and fashion. It was a sensory assault, a gleaming maelstrom on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The very air seemed to vibrate, thick with the percussive roar of hundreds of photographers shouting, the frantic click of 1,000,000 camera shutters, and the electric hum of the crowd pressed against the barricades, their cell phones held aloft like a sea of digital offerings. This year's theme, Celestial Bodies, had inspired a parade of ethereal and often extravagant creations, turning the grand staircase into a river of silk, satin, and starlight. It was a night for legends, not for amateurs. Into this crucible of judgment came Ethan and Isabella. Their entrance was as subtle as a car alarm. The hired vintage Rolls-Royce, a monstrous confection of cream and chrome, was so ostentatiously large it had trouble turning onto the carpet, causing a momentary, embarrassing traffic jam. Inside, Ethan had spent the last moments giving Isabella a frantic whispered pep talk. "Remember, chin up, look bored, indifferent, like you belong here. Don't smile too much, It looks desperate. And for God's sake, let me do the talking if anyone from Vogue approaches. Isabella, who was busy applying a final coat of sticky lip gloss in her phone's camera, just nodded. The advice washed over her like a gentle, unheeded wave. "Don't you worry, babe," he had said, ridiculously clad in a navy velvet Tom Ford tuxedo with a satin lapel so wide it looked like a pair of wings. His bow tie, a matching velvet monstrosity, threatened to upstage his chin. He plastered a smirk on his face, a pathetic imitation of the confident swagger he had seen in movies, and struck a pose. Isabella exited after him, a human disco ball stuffed into a silver-sequined dress, with a neckline that plunged to her navel and a slit that rode precariously high on her thigh. The dress was designed not to be admired, but to be noticed. A desperate plea for attention in a room full of confident whispers. They were an assault on the senses, a garish splash of new money and limitless ego. They posed together, their movements stiff, choreographed, and utterly devoid of warmth. Ethan's hand on Isabella's back looked less like an affectionate caress and more like he was maneuvering a piece of furniture into place. Isabella cycled through her 3 signature poses: the pout, the sultry over-the-shoulder, and the hand-on-hip smirk. The veteran photographers in the lineup, men and women who could spot a fake from 100 yards away, took their obligatory shots with an air of tired disdain before turning their lenses, looking for a more authentic moment. A true star. Ethan, however, was locked in a fortress of self-deception. In his mind, the flashes were a confirmation of his status. The shouts were for him. He was the man who had it all, the movie star girlfriend, the bespoke life, a ticket to the most exclusive party on the planet. He felt a surge of triumphant joy. He scanned the crowd, his eyes hungry for recognition, for the looks of envy he was sure he was receiving. He was here. He had arrived. He had no idea that he was simply the opening act for his own execution. Then, a palpable shift happened on the carpet. A quiet authority replaced the chaotic energy. The frantic shouting from the press corps died down, replaced by an expectant murmur. A sleek black Bentley Mulsanne, the automotive equivalent of a perfectly tailored tuxedo, pulled up in silent dignity. Its presence was a statement of a wealth so profound and so discreet that the garish Rolls-Royce, parked in front of it, suddenly looked like a cheap toy. The chauffeur opened the door, and Julian Croft emerged. He needed no crushed velvet or an oversized bow tie. In an exquisitely cut, classic Tom Ford tuxedo, he radiated a power that was both innate and absolute. He moved with an unhurried grace, a man completely at ease in his own skin and in whatever setting he chose to occupy. He turned, ignoring the now frantic press, and held out a hand to the dark interior of the car. And then Olivia stepped out. It wasn't an entrance. It was a revelation. The world seemed to hold its breath. A collective gasp rippled through the press line, a sound of pure, unadulterated awe. Olivia Parker, a woman the world had forgotten, had just become the undisputed center of the universe. She was a vision from a dream, a celestial Madonna brought to life. Her dress, a custom creation by a revered Parisian couturier, was a masterpiece of midnight blue silk chiffon that looked as if it had captured the night sky itself. The fabric flowed around her, falling in soft, ethereal layers that draped her 7-month pregnant form, not to conceal it, but to celebrate it, to frame it as the miracle it was. The neckline was a graceful off-the-shoulder sweep, and from her neck A single, magnificent diamond necklace, a gift from Julian, rested against her collarbone, glittering like a captured constellation. Her honey blonde hair was swept up in an intricate low bun, revealing the elegant line of her neck, her face superior. Free of the heavy makeup favored by women like Isabella, was luminous. She glowed with an inner radiance, a serene and confident joy that no cosmetic could ever replicate. She wasn't playing a part. She was simply, magnificently, herself. Julian's hand rested gently on the small of her back, his touch at once protective and proud. He looked at her not as an accessory, but as his queen. They were a tableau of genuine love, of quiet strength, of a power so profound it didn't need to announce itself. The photographers, who had been lethargic just moments before, erupted. The sound was a deafening, continuous roar of shutters, a desperate, frantic scramble to capture an image that was already iconic. They weren't just taking a picture. They were witnessing a moment. "Olivia! Olivia! Look this way! Miss Parker! Over here! Beautiful!" The shouts were no longer dismissive. They were reverent. Ethan stood frozen 20 feet away, the smug smile melting off his face like wax. His mind struggled to process the vision before him. It was as if he were looking at a stranger. This radiant, celestial being couldn't be his Olivia, the quiet, sensible woman he had deemed bland and uninspiring. The woman he had discarded was now the most breathtaking creature he had ever seen. His gaze flickered from Olivia's serene presence to Isabella, who was now adjusting her dress, looking annoyed that the attention had shifted. In the bright glow of Olivia's authentic light, Isabella's sequins suddenly looked cheap. Her practiced pout looked vulgar. Her overtly sexual dress looked desperate. He had bragged to his friends that he had traded in a sedan for a sports car. Now he saw the devastating truth. He had traded an priceless work of art for a cheap, factory-made replica. The realization was a physical blow. A wave of vertigo washed over him, and the triumphant sounds of the gala faded into a dull roar in his ears. Every cruel word he had ever said to her came rushing back to him, each one a new stab of shame. He had called her life stagnation. He had called himself a pioneer of authenticity. The hypocrisy was so vast, so profound, it threatened to swallow him whole. He and Isabella were now completely invisible, two ghosts haunting the edge of the frame. The entire world was focused on Olivia and Julian as they began to ascend the grand staircase. As she passed the spot where Ethan was standing, paralyzed, Olivia's gaze, for one single, crushing split second, met his. He braced himself for a look of triumph, of anger, of smug satisfaction. He would have welcomed it, but it never came. Instead, her eyes held only a quiet, profound pity. It was a look that didn't say, "I told you so." It said, "I'm so sorry for you." It was the look one gives to something broken, something small and sad. And in that one devastating gaze, she stripped him of his anger, his pride, and the last vestiges of his dignity. He wasn't her villain. He wasn't even a footnote. He was simply an object of her compassion. That was the deepest cut of all. The rest of the night was a masterclass in public humiliation. Inside the museum, while Olivia and Julian were personally greeted by Anna Wintour and escorted to the co-chairs table at the very heart of the gala, Ethan and Isabella were directed by an assistant with a clipboard to a table in the far reaches of the room. It was a social Siberia, populated by reality stars, TikTok influencers, and the forgotten plus ones of more important people. The air at their table was thick with the desperate energy of people who knew they didn't quite belong. From his miserable vantage point, Ethan was forced to watch the main event. He saw Olivia, seated next to a legendary film director, deep in animated conversation, her laughter ringing out softly. He saw Julian, in a deep discussion with a tech visionary who had changed the world. They weren't just attending the party, they were the party. The final straw for his ego came during the night's speeches. Julian took the stage, and the vast room fell silent. He spoke eloquently about the museum, about the power of art. Then his voice softened, and he directed his gaze right to Olivia. Art, in its highest form, allows us to see the world anew, he said, his voice resonating with deep emotion. And tonight, I'm here with the greatest artist I have ever known, my partner, Olivia Parker, who has taught me the true meaning of resilience, grace, and the transformative power of a loving heart. She has taken the broken pieces of a life and is building a masterpiece of strength and beauty. And she is creating our family's own masterpiece right now. He gestured softly to her, a look of overwhelming love on his face. Thank you for inspiring me and the world every day. The room erupted in a wave of heartfelt applause. Olivia's eyes glistened with tears as she looked at him. Her expression, a perfect portrait of love, was all he needed. Ethan felt the applause like a series of physical blows. He had had that love. He had held that masterpiece in his hands, and in his blind, arrogant stupidity, he had thrown it into the fire. He risked a glance at Isabella. She had missed the entire speech. She was hunched over her phone, her face lit by its pale light, furiously editing a selfie she had taken of her dessert plate, her thumb swiping through filters, completely absorbed in her own small digital world. He looked from her vacant expression to the radiant, beloved woman across the room. He had boasted to everyone that his lover looked like a movie star, but his pregnant ex-wife had become royalty. And he, Ethan Pierce, the self-proclaimed king of the upgrade, was nothing more than a jester in the ruins of his own pathetic kingdom. And there you have it. A story of love, loss, and the most satisfying ultimate revenge. Olivia's journey from a shattered, discarded wife to a radiant, empowered woman on the arm of a man who truly valued her is a powerful reminder that our stories are not defined by those who leave us, but by the strength we find within ourselves to rewrite our own endings. Ethan, in his blind arrogance, thought he could simply upgrade, but he learned the hard way that true worth is not found in flashy appearances, but in the quiet, unshakable strength of a person's character. What did you think of Olivia's incredible transformation? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this story and want to see more tales of epic comebacks and karmic justice, don't forget to like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will make you cheer. Your support helps us keep bringing you the stories you love. Thanks for watching.